إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا ومنيرا قال سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. صدق الله العظيم. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. So this is the third in a series of talks that we've been doing. This is the final one. One was about Nuruddin al-Zingi. I believe the other one was about Imam Bukhari. And the theme is actually about change. And, you know, we're all aware of what is happening around the world, even within our own communities, within the UK. There's lots of discussions about lots of different topics, but they all generally center around either affecting Muslims or Islam, or it's involved within the conversation. So whether it's the migration issues in this country, and you're seeing the country, you're seeing the population being radicalized against what they call migrants, but if you follow the undertones of those conversations, you find that actually they're talking about Muslims. Our culture is different, our values is different. Or whether you're referring to, in the Muslim world, Gaza, we know what is happening, Sudan, the more quiet massacre which isn't really being covered as well as Gaza is. That's been happening for longer actually. So there's a lot of upheaval, a lot of uncertainty. Parents are worried about their children. Children might not be as much as worried because they don't realize what's going on. Families are worried about how they navigate these things, whether it's locally or whether it's internationally. The one thing that binds all of these things is everybody is looking for change. And it's about what type of change you want. And so when we started this series, the reason we discussed change is because what we want to project is historically in the Ummah's history, they've had significant events, really big ones. So as an example, Imam Bukhari and the codification of the hadith and how he codified it, and we feel the impact of that today. He did this many, many centuries ago, but actually we are benefiting from his, rahmatullahi alayhi's, work to this day, and this Ummah will continue to benefit from his work. Or whether it's Nuruddin al-Zengi, and remember this is the man who came before Salahuddin, and Salahuddin is the one who's famous, known to have liberated Al-Aqsa and Al-Quds, but actually it is Nuruddin al-Zengi who put in the work and the preparations, but he never got to see the fruits of it, unfortunately. He passed away, and it was Salahuddin who reaped the fruits from it. So in the same vein, we want to talk about another catastrophe in the Muslim, that happened to the Muslim Ummah historically. And you could probably say this was one of the most dire catastrophes that affected the Ummah after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the greatest affliction we faced was the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was the saddest day the Ummah has ever witnessed. But after that, you could say this incident, i.e. the Mongol invasion, the Tartars, if you want to call them that, the invasion, was one of the greatest catastrophes. And that being is, it wasn't just that the Abbasid Khilafah was wiped out. There was a feeling that the Mongols were going to take over the whole of the Muslim world and Europe. So even Europe was concerned. So you have to imagine Poland and these kind of countries. They were also worried about the Mongol invasion, and they were thinking to themselves, if the Muslims can't stop them, we're not going to be able to. So the Mongols are going to go from all the way from the east, i.e. near China, where Mongolia is now, all the way to the west, taking over everything in the middle, effectively. North Africa, the Caucasus, some chunks of Russia, Europe, the bottom of Spain, and then right into France, effectively. That was the fear. So you can imagine how vast this territory is now. The reason I'm giving you that explanation is because this isn't like today, brothers, where you can get in a car and drive across half the country in a couple of hours, in 4, 5, 6 hours. These are people on horseback. This is in 1250. Let's start from the 1200s. From 1200s onwards, this is when these incidents start happening. So you must imagine, the mode of transport is a camel, or it's a horse, or it's a donkey, or something like that. And the mode of fighting is a sword and bows and arrows. This isn't where you drop a missile like the Israelis do when they kill 20 people in Gaza. This is not the way it is. So in those days, this is happening. So you can imagine the extent, or in the minds of the people, what was going on. Now, before I start, I want to give you some background, inshallah, because the context hopefully will show you the great feat of Saifuddin Qutuz and what he managed to achieve. The Mongols started, I mean, they always existed, but their reign really started under Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan was born in 1162 CE. At that same time, so while he's born, you have the Crusades that Salahuddin defeats. So this isn't long before the Crusades, the Mongol invasion. It's within 100 years of Salahuddin liberating Al-Aqsa. So Salahuddin liberates Aqsa in 1187 CE, Common Era. And after he dies, if you can think of the map of Palestine, Egypt, and the Hijaz, the Salahuddin's tribe, effectively, his people take over that region. So the Ayyubids start to rule in that region. So to think of the Hijaz, this is where Mecca, Medina is. You go up into Palestine, into Jordan a bit, up into Syria, Aleppo, Hama, and to the left of you into Egypt. So that's where their strip is. Yeah, they are starting to rule. Genghis Khan dies in 1227. So he's 65 when he dies. When he dies, he has taken over China, he has taken over Japan. He has started in 1220 to enter into the Muslim regions. So he's already taken over some Muslim region by starting to enter what is regarded as the Khuzaymiyya Empire. So the Khuzaymiyya Empire is effectively where is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, etc., etc. That's where it is. So he's coming from that side. He's entered in 1220. Now this is significant, and inshallah I'll link that right at the end. When he takes the Khuzaymiyya Empire, he actually sends a delegate. So this is Genghis Khan. He sends a delegate. And the Khuzaymians, they're regarded as the Shahs. They're basically an extension of, they become the Persian Empire later. What they do is they know about these guys, about the Mongols and what they do. So when the delegates come, immediately they execute them. They execute them thinking, we want to send a message to Genghis Khan. Don't try and enter our territory, otherwise this is what's going to happen. The reason why this is a message is because you do not execute delegates. Yeah? When an ambassador comes, he has immunity, you're not supposed to kill him. So they execute them. Genghis Khan then sends a few more. And they execute that lot as well. And Genghis Khan invades. He then says, okay, you want to fight? And he invades. He invades the whole of the Khuzaymiyya Empire. They come, their territory is almost close to Baghdad. So he takes the whole of the north. He comes down into Baghdad. So you have to imagine Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, these types of places are all gone. What we regard now? Yeah, Pakistan, some of India, not all of it. The bottom of India he doesn't take. Yeah. So when he's now entered the region that you have by about 1250. So 1250 is when the context of the Muslim world is. You have the Ayyubids. You now have the Mongols on one side. You have the Abbasid Khalifa and the Khilafah in Baghdad and what is regarded as Iraq. And up in the north, beyond Hama and beyond Aleppo, you have a separate tribe that has taken over. So the Islamic lands are fragmented. They're not unified. What you get is different regions looking after their own interests. Yes, everybody recognizes the Khalifa al-Mu'tasim Billah in Baghdad. As in, in the khutbah they say his name. If they're going to invade a place, they might do it in his name. They send him some tribute. They send him some money, effectively. But really, they're running their own show. That's what's happening. So each place is fragmented. Now, the reason I'm making that point is because when you're disunited, it's easy to invade. Why? Because you're not my problem. If you invade Baghdad, I'm in Cairo. It's not my issue. If you invade Baghdad, as an example, I'm in the north. It's not my issue. I'm in the south. It's not my issue. You have the same problem today. If you look across the Muslim world, you have Gaza, and then you have Israel. And then if you look around Israel, what do you have? You have Syria on one side, you have Jordan on one side, you have Turkey above Syria, and you have Egypt blocking one border. It's in the Muslim neighborhood, Israelis. This massacre isn't being taken place in a foreign land. As an example, the Uyghurs who are suffering, they are suffering in China. It's in a foreign land. It's across somewhere, you have to travel. This is in the heart of the Muslim world, that the massacre of the Muslims in Gaza is happening. And it's surrounded by Muslim nations. But if each nation thinks to itself, I'm Egyptian, it's not my problem. I'm Jordanian, this is not my problem. I am Syrian, this is not my problem. I am Turkish, it doesn't involve me. I have to look after my own national interests. This massacre will continue. And that is the fragmentation you had during the time of Saifuddin Qutuz. Then come the Mongols. Now by this time, by 1250, Genghis Khan is dead. His son is the one that takes over. And his son sends someone called, basically his son sends his son, Hulagu Khan, to go and invade Baghdad. And Hulagu Khan first sends, again, a delegation, and he tells Al-Mu'tasim, you need to surrender. Now Mu'tasim, he has many advisors. One of his advisors is a traitor named Al-Alqami. And what he does is that he is already in contact with the Mongols, and he's basically playing both sides. He has his own aspirations. His aspiration is, well, I'm hoping that, if they get rid of the Khalifa, then I can become basically the ruler. That's what he's thinking. I'm going to side with the Mongols, and they'll put me in place, effectively. Yeah. So Al-Alqami is basically giving information to Hulagu Khan, and he's telling him, look, this is what's happening in Baghdad, etc., etc. Hulagu Khan sends the delegates, and Khalifa Mu'tasim says to his advisor, what shall we do? And he says to him, you know what, you should surrender without any conditions. Just surrender. Don't bother fighting. We're not going to be able to defeat them. Hopefully, if we surrender, they'll give us good terms because we didn't fight. Yeah. So Mu'tasim surrenders, and in his court, while he's there, he has 700 of his courtiers. Yeah. So these are advisors, workers, administrators, etc., etc., etc. Hulagu Khan walks in. He looks at Mu'tasim, and immediately he slaughters 500 of them. Without any conversation, he slaughters 500 of them. And then he says to Mu'tasim, I'm your guest. I'm here to stay. Pay me tribute. Give me tribute. So Mu'tasim starts producing gold, and he gives him the ornaments of Baghdad. And Hulagu Khan says, I want more. This isn't enough. Thingy continues. Al-Mu'tasim continues. He gives him more. And then he says, I want more. He knows what he's got, because remember, Al-Alqami's already told him. Yeah? So he then digs up his court. He digs up his palace, and there's like a small river under it made of gold. So it's got all these gold bars, small gold bars in it. And he gives him those. And then Hulagu Khan takes one out, and he says to him, here, take it, eat it. He said, eat it. And he said, I can't eat it. He said, so why have you preserved all of this? Why didn't you use this in the defense of your city? You've got all this gold, you've got all these ornaments, you know we're coming to attack, why didn't you prepare yourself? And then what he does, they wrap the Khalifa up in a rag, and they trample him up with their horses, effectively. And for the next 10, some say 15 days, they massacre Baghdad. So they estimate, and the numbers, we can't be sure of them, yeah, but the closest, most accurate is Baghdad around 1250 had about 1 million people in it. He killed about 800,000, they think. So he massacred about 800,000 people. So they just went slaughtering everyone, to the extent that they burnt down libraries. Now, anyone who knows anything about Baghdad and the Abbasids, yeah, they had a brilliant civilization. Yeah, they had like the House of Wisdom and Baytul Hikmah and all these types of places. Books. Remember back in those days, paper, pen, expensive. Yeah, you wrote one copy of a book and you left it on the shelf. You didn't print again and again. You had books from ulama that were lost, and they said that the streets and the rivers were filled with ink and filled with blood. He enslaved the women. He enslaved the children. Hulagu Khan, yeah? And anybody who could escape and take refuge, they headed towards Cairo. The slaughtering was so bad, was so severe, that after 40 days, Hulagu Khan himself leaves the city because of the stench of the dead bodies. That's how bad it was. He leaves the city, he leaves Baghdad for a while, he leaves someone in charge, and he can't take the stench of the city. Now there's a lesson here, brothers, for us, yeah? If you're going to partake in amusement, if you're going to partake in just seeking the dunya and building nice palaces and building nice places without preparing ourselves for when the enemy attacks, don't be surprised when the enemy overtakes you. I want you to take a moment, and again, I want to bring it to real life, to our day today. Think of Gaza. What are our rulers busy doing? You've got our, Mohammed ibn Salman in Saudi Arabia running concerts, building palaces, inviting all these actors and actresses down and bringing the generations and saying, enjoy yourselves in these pop concerts. You've got him preparing, I think, for the World Cup that's supposed to come up in Saudi Arabia at some point. You had Qatar spent billions and billions and billions of pounds on doing their World Cup. If you go to our countries, they're busy with tourism and building these nice palaces. This is what our rulers are busy doing. We, in our countries, very few, if any of our countries, build anything militarily. We do not build any of the screws that go into the tanks. We do not build any of the missiles. All of the systems are foreign. All of the systems that we use are foreign. It's by somebody else. I.e., they have control of your national interest, because our rulers are busy building what? Palaces and nice places and ornaments, and who can buy this football club and who can buy that football club. That's all they've been doing. And whose money is this? The Ummah's money. There is no protection for the Ummah. So when the enemy comes, what happens? You are completely and utterly reliant on someone else. This is what happens to this man. He had the money, he didn't bother spending it. There was one narration, I'm not sure how accurate it is, that he actually sent money to Syria for dancers. So Al-Mu'tasim, while he knows the invasion is coming, he sends money for dancers. Hulagu, the same guy who comes to invade, sends money to the same place, to the same guy, for weapons. And that guy, who's based in Syria at the time, he says, look, one sends for dancers and one sends for weapons. We know who's going to win. It's negligence of the ruler. This isn't just, they came and they conquered and they massacred everyone. They did that, but it was because you had no defenses. And that's what happens when you have people who are incompetent in power. Don't be surprised when these things happen. Al-Alqami, the guy who thought he was going to get the position, Hulagu says to him, well, you betrayed your last ruler, so you're going to betray me. I'm going to kill you too. So he chops his head off and kills him. Now that news is now spreading across the Muslim world, and people are terrified. Yeah, there are so Aleppo and Hama at the time, and Antioch, they surrender. They're so terrified of Hulagu and the Mongols, they surrender to them. So think of Syria, they're now going up the top and they're coming down. They are now coming down into Jerusalem, into Palestine, they're going to start coming down. On the other side in Egypt, the Ayyubids are overthrown by the Mamluk. Yeah? So while this is happening with the Mongols, the Ayyubids, what they do is, the Mamluk are basically slaves. They are slaves that they have taken from the Caucasus and they have bought over the decades and brought into Egypt to work for them. However, these Mamluk become very, very powerful. They start taking position of judges, of scholars, of positions in the administration, soldiers, fighters. Mufassir Saifuddin Qutuz is one of these Mamluks. And I said to you at the beginning, I mentioned that place, the Khwarezmian Empire. He himself is from this place. He was a part of the royal family, and when the Mongols invaded, they enslaved him. And he was then later sold to the Ayyubids, and that's how he moved to Egypt. So this is now coming full circle. So he is now in Egypt. He has become, through some political maneuvers, he has become the ruler in Egypt. And he has heard that the Mongols are coming. He has heard that the Hulagu Khan and his lot, they're coming down, yeah? Now, two things. Firstly, Saifuddin Qutuz, he starts training the soldiers. So one of the first things is he spends money and he starts training the soldiers. But remember, this is Egypt. This isn't like really rich place like Syria, he has to raise taxes. However, at the same time, one of the scholars that are present in Egypt is Imam Izzuddin Abdul Salam. So Imam, anybody who knows, a very famous Shafi'i scholar, he is present in Egypt. And he does three things. The first thing he does is that he tells Saifuddin Qutuz, you cannot raise taxes on the poor, you have to take money from the rich first to fund the defense and the campaign, and after that, if it's not enough, then you can take money from the poor. This isn't let's just go to the poor and take it off them. The rich, the people who have wealth in Egypt, they're the ones who need to give the money first. This is the first fatwa he issues. The second fatwa he gives is that he advises the people and he advises Saifuddin Qutuz that they should fight. So he says to them, do not surrender, you should all fight. And we need to defend the Muslim territories, because they've heard Baghdad has been taken. We need to defend the Muslim territories. Even if that means that we lose, we need to fight. We need to defend ourselves, we need to take the Mongols back. Now, I want to keep in mind the mindset a little bit. Yeah? The Mongols have been on a winning streak. All they've done is won. They've come from Mongolia from the time of Genghis Khan. They've taken one place after another place, after another place, after another place, after another. They haven't suffered defeat. It gives the image of invincibility. What happens then is that if you think we can't beat them, better join them. And they are large in number. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. So you've got the Mongols, yeah? From the west, the Crusades ain't over, by the way. The Crusaders are still coming for Antioch, and they're coming for Jerusalem. So from the west, you've got to worry about the Crusaders. But the west, i.e. the Crusaders, and Europe is worried about the Mongols, because if they don't get stopped, we're going to get conquered as well. And then right in the middle, sandwiched, you've got Saifuddin Qutuz and Egypt, and basically some of Palestine. He's smack bang in the middle. So he's worried about the Mongols on the east, on the eastern front, the Crusaders on the western front. So what do I do here? So after he trains the army, his advisors tell him, we're not going to fight, we should surrender. And he refuses. He says, no, we're going to fight. And if we die, we die, but we are going to fight. So Saifuddin Qutuz, he's now in Egypt and he's waiting for news. The Mongols come, they come into Aleppo, they come down, and they've now come to Ain Jalut, and they've sent message to Egypt to tell them that, look, surrender. Now, within that, something happens, yeah? Genghis Khan's son, who takes over, I think his name is Udugai, dies. So Hulagu Khan, he's now thinking, he's the nephew of Genghis Khan, one of the sons, yeah? So he's now thinking, all right, my uncle, my father's dead. I need to get back to Mongolia so I can take power, i.e. there's going to be a power struggle. So while he's in Syria, Palestine, he decides that he's going to leave. So he leaves around 60 to 100,000 soldiers, and he leaves. And he leaves them under the control of actually a Christian named Kitbuqa Noya. So this guy is now going to try and take Egypt. So Hulagu Khan leaves, and this person is stationed. The message has been sent to Saifuddin Qutuz with delegates. What does Saifuddin Qutuz does? He chops off their heads, he puts it on a pole, and he puts it on the castle top. And he sends a message to say, we're not surrendering. And then he leaves with 12,000 soldiers. 60,000, maybe 100,000, 12,000, maybe about 15,000 soldiers. So he's clearly outnumbered. He leaves with about 12 to 15,000 soldiers, and he heads towards Ain Jalut. And this is where the battle takes place. And anybody who knows anything about Ain Jalut knows that this is where Salahuddin, less than 100 years ago, defeated the Crusaders. Yeah, so less than 100 years ago, Salahuddin had defeated the Crusaders there. When they get there, they devise a strategy where basically the Mongols were known for two things. They were known to be really quick and their numbers. And so we need to kind of deal with their numbers and their quickness. So he basically takes position in this mountain pass where it's narrow so that everyone has to run through it, i.e. the Mongols. He places some of his soldiers at the front with another very famous Muslim general named Baybars. He places them at the front, and the idea is to draw the Mongols in so that they can run out, and then they're basically going to shoot with arrows to try and kill them and then fight them in that corridor. So as basically as a point that you can't, your numbers don't mean anything because everyone has to pile up, isn't it? Yeah? Anyone who's seen 300 is basically that strategy, right? Anybody who's seen 300 is that strategy, yeah? In effect, yeah? Kitbuqa, he comes in as planned. He chases Baybars and his soldiers who draw them in. He goes into this pass, and this pass isn't just a mountain pass, it's got trees and stuff here. And the Muslim soldiers come out, i.e. Saifuddin Qutuz's soldiers come out, and they annihilate them. They don't just kill them, they slaughter them. Yeah? They annihilate that army of the Mongols. To the extent that the Mongols start to run off, and the Muslim army lays chase, and they are killing them. Some reports talk about them being chased for 300 miles. So you can imagine how far that is, yeah? It's on horseback and stuff, yeah? Killing the Mongols effectively. That news reverberates around the Muslim territories, because this is now the first time that the Mongols have suffered defeat. This is the first battle that they have lost. So that news, and there is alleviation, there is like people are relieved, Europe is relieved, okay, the Muslims, these people we can defeat, these ain't invincibles. Because even during that time in the Muslim regions, there was this attitude that these are Ya'juj and Ma'juj, because they come, they destroy cities and they just leave. They come, they felt that this is the end of time, Qiyamah had come, these guys are going to take everyone. These are some of the attitude people had, yeah? So the fact that 12,000, 15,000 Saifuddin Qutuz managed to defeat them, it gave comfort to actually they can be defeated. And from then on, the Mongols they lost one battle, yeah? They didn't lose the empire. They went back, they actually took over some more land in other places, and they survived for at least another 50 years. From 1250, they survived at least another 50 years, 60 years. It was just that the invincibility was broken. The idea that they can't be defeated was broken. Saifuddin Qutuz, unfortunately, he then passes away. He gets actually assassinated on the way back. So on the way back to Egypt, he himself is assassinated. Yeah. Now, there are a couple of lessons we can learn here. Yeah. We always have this image of, America is too powerful. The West is too powerful. Look at their weapons. Look at their armory. They've got the nuclear bomb. They've got this and they've got that and they've got thousands of soldiers and they've got the F-16 and the F... And, you know, people go into a tangent about that. We can't defeat them. Yeah. Now, the Mongols, they had this aura around them. They can't be defeated. They're too strong. They're too powerful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to take preparation. وَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Prepare to the best of your abilities. But do not think to ourselves that the only way to win is that we have to be better prepared than them. We prepare to the best of our abilities as an ummah, and then we have to take the fight to them to defend our lands. This is exactly what Saifuddin Qutuz does. He prepares to the best of his abilities, within his means, what he can do. And then he takes the fight to them. The other factor that we always forget, brothers, when I find that people have this conversation, is we forget that one, we should have reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and two, who does Allah send to help you in a fight? When Rasulullah is fighting in Badr and Uhud and these places, Allah tells him, what, we sent angels to help you. We sent 100, 200, etc. There is a hadith about the number that Allah even sends. We sent this many to help you. We never factor that in, even though Allah tells us that. We constantly keep thinking about these people can't be defeated because they're too powerful, because look at all of their arsenal and their wealth and their power, etc., etc. In the story, long story of Dawood and Goliath, David and Goliath, Ain Jalut, what happens? Dawood, the small guy, defeats the big guy. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us right at the bottom of that verse, how many times has a small party defeated a tougher, a bigger, a more well-prepared party, a stronger party? Victory is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we have to do our part as an ummah. This is one thing. Yeah? After all of the preparation, we have to do our part as an ummah. The other thing that is important, the whole context of this battle is the protection of Islam. When Saifuddin Qutuz was fighting, one of the things he said was, wal Islam, to encourage his soldiers to go and fight. To give them, remember, they're scared, yeah? They're fighting the Mongols. These guys, like, you know, there's probably stories around, they bite your head off and eat it. So he's trying to give them, this is about Islam. This is about the fact that we want Islam to be and to remain on the map. This is what Saifuddin Qutuz is thinking. I want Islam to be here. I need to pass it on to the next generation. Again, take our scenario at the moment. Which one of our rulers can you say, as an example, is saying to this is for Islam? This is that I want to leave Islam for the next generation. I want to leave them in this ummah in a better state, rather than their own national interest. And until we account them on that, to say, hold on a second, we're Muslims first and foremost. You know, we've got ethnicities, fine, but we're Muslims first and foremost. We're an ummah first and foremost, and this is a struggle between ummah and the challenges that she faces. And I'm going to end on this, is there is no such thing as a comfortable life. Yeah? So, you know, we have this thing of when we get through one challenge, inshallah, then I can relax and I can chill out and I'll be all right. That doesn't exist in the dunya. The ummah will always face struggles. There will always be a struggle that the ummah is in, i.e. it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was with the Quraysh. After the death of the Prophet ﷺ, then Abu Bakr and the Rashidun, they had their challenges even amongst themselves, and with the Romans and the Byzantines and taking Al-Quds. Then later on, the Umayyads, you had them trying to take Islam to the north of Africa, and etc., etc. You had the Abbasids that come along. In between that, you had Salahuddin. In between that, you had Saifuddin Qutuz. And there were many other challenges that the Ummah faced in her 1400 years, threats that had come, and our mission to take Islam to them. That's what this life is about. It's a life of struggle, where we have taken an oath with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will take Islam not just to our children, but to the next generation and to the non-Muslims. And sometimes that is from a defensive perspective, Saifuddin Qutuz trying to protect Islam, trying to protect the Islamic State, what remains of Islam, and sometimes it will be from an offensive perspective. But that's fine, but there is no rest in that. I want to finish with one last verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن يمسسكم قرح فقد مس القوم قرح مثله. If you have suffered injuries, so this verse was revealed regarding Uhud, yeah? Where Rasulullah had suffered injuries, Rasulullah himself was hurt. If you had suffered injuries, they have also suffered. I.e., you're going through a tough time. You know, the ummah is going through a tough time. And it looks like they've got the upper hand on you, but they haven't. They've also suffered injuries. They've also suffered loss. They've also suffered. So don't think to yourself, I can see the glamour of them and think they're all right. They're not actually. They're suffering, but we have suffered too. The difference between our suffering and their suffering is we get rewarded in Yawmul Qiyamah and they don't. Allah SWT then continues, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Allah alternates the days between people, i.e. He alternates victory between people. One day He gives it to one day He gives it to another. Why? وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَتَّخَذُ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ. Why does Allah do that? So that He can reveal, He can show us the true believers and take shuhada from them. Remember, shaheed is a great station, yeah? The one who dies for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, has the highest station. And then Allah finishes the verse with, وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. Allah does not love the wrongdoers. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.